Hello and welcome. This is Cheryl. Thank you so much for joining me today. In this video, I'm sharing some unique masculine cards using the Classic Road 2.0 collection. Now, I've already done a video with this collection. Now, in that video, I actually messed up with the taping, but you actually don't know because I redid one of the cars. So I had an extra car laying to the side and I wanted to use it for a couple ideas I had after that video. So this is the car that I had accidentally assembled off screen. Then I just recut everything and assembled it on screen. So if you want to see the assembly to that, I will link that video at the end of this one. But I thought it would be fun to use that car as just a shaped card. You could easily put it onto a base like I've done on the video that I will link, and as I'm going to do with the other card that I'm going to create in this video. But it's just a fun one for just a simple, unique card all on its own. So I'm going to take a piece of hammer mill cardstock here. You saw me trace out that car with a pencil, and I'm going to use my detail cutting scissors in order to fussy cut around it. Now, there isn't a solid car die in this set, which is why I'm doing this. I have the outline of the car die cut out of some Oceanside cardstock, and this is just to give it a little bit more stability on the back and fill in the window pieces on the car. So I'm just cutting on the inside of that pencil line. Once I put it onto or glue it onto the back of my card, you'll see that I have some slivers that are just peeking out, and I'm just going to use those detail scissors once again just to trim that excess off so it's not visible. I didn't want to trim it off too much and look at the back of the car and see the die cut behind it. So I erred on the side of caution just within that pencil line. But like I said, on the back of the car there, you can see that there's a little bit of a sliver of white. Once it's glued on there, it's easy enough to cut those slivers off. But it would have been more challenging to glue the car onto the white cardstock and then fussy cut the entire thing. This just made it a little bit easier. Once I have those two pieces glued together, I scored it at 1.5 inches. So you can see it's definitely smaller than a standard size card. This is definitely going to be a smaller card. It could also be like a tag, like a gift tag. I think that would be fun as well. So once I've scored that, I folded them back and forth, and then I just added some glue to the top part of that score line or above that score line and glued those two together. So we're going to have a little area on the inside of the card in order to write on, but you could also write on the back of the card, on the back of the white cardstock. Now I cut my chrome pieces out of silver mirror cardstock, and after assembly I thought it'd be fun to have yellow in those lights to make them look like they're lit up. So I just used a Copic marker. This was Y17, and I added that yellow on top of there, and then to give it some dome dimension I'm putting some glossy accents on there. Now the base of my car is also a specialty cardstock. It is the brushed finished cardstock from the Aquamarine Treasured cardstock pack. There's a bunch of different finishes and they're really fun for using with these cars. For the next card I'm doing, it's called the Hot Rod Flames, and I'm going to be using the ruby cardstock in the brushed finish. I absolutely love this. On the original video that I did, I used the Onyx cardstock, which is the black in, I think it was the brushed finish as well. That looks fantastic as well. So I hope you go look at that video after this one and check that out, because these cards are just so much fun to create with. I know when you see them laid out on my desk here, there is a lot of pieces to them. Really, the hardest part is cutting all of those pieces out. When it comes to assembling them, I like to lay them all out on my desk so I know that I have everything ready to go. I kind of lay them in order of assembly. I put the like things close together, so you'll see all of the different tires have the pieces for them together with them. The light pieces that I assembled first were all right together, so it was easy to just pick and choose, grab the pieces and assemble them. I also find that because when you die cut these pieces, it leaves a little indent showing you where the upper layer is supposed to go. It makes it really easy to add some glue to it, and then just use the wax tipped tool from the handy tool set and lift up some of those smaller pieces in order to place them. Now, the one thing to know when assembling these cars with this specialty cardstock is the specialty cardstock has a coating on the top, so it doesn't absorb the glue quite as easily as regular cardstock. So it does take just a little bit longer for that glue to set. It will absolutely set. Sometimes the cardstock wants to curve just a little bit, and that's where having something a little bit heavier to put on top of it while it's drying comes in handy. I have an old acrylic block that I use often, and I find for things like this, it is a godsend because you can easily just cover one area, hold everything now down nice and flat while you're assembling other pieces on it. For the tires for this car, I die cut them out of Anchor cardstock, which is a dark gray. You could also do a black, but I kind of thought having a dark gray was something just a little bit different and was not quite as stark or heavy looking as a black. There's also a white circle or white wall for the tire that's just die cut out of some scrap white cardstock that I had there. So once I have this whole thing glued together, I'm going to set it aside, and I'm going to be using the stencil set that comes with this collection. It's called Highway Horizons, and it creates a really beautiful desert background. Now, this Classic Road 2.0 collection is kind of a second addition to the Classic Road collection. There was one that came out, I think it was in early fall or whatnot, that has other classic cars as well as a classic truck. So all of these techniques could be done with those as well. They're just so fun to create with for masculine cars, and especially for a car lover. So once I had my pieces die cut, I added some glossy accents to those lights, and those lights were just die cut out of some beeswax cardstock so that it's yellow, so I didn't have to color that, but I wanted it to have that domed glossy dimension to it. So the layering stencil set has several different layers to it. They're really easy to layer together and to match up with each other. For the first layer, we just have that road, and I'm inking that one with some Rusty Hinge Distress ink. For the next layer, we have the desert as well as the sun, and I'm using some Scattered Straw Distress ink for both the sun as well as the desert area. If you look at my first video from this collection, you'll see I do the backgrounds in a few different ways, or with a couple different color variations to them, to show you a few different options. For this card here that I'm creating for the second card, I wanted it to be super simple. I'm going to create a different card base to add a little bit of dimension, so the card sticks out from the desert scene on the card, just for something a little bit different. It's super easy to do. It's not complicated at all, and it just requires two A2 card bases basically. So that third stencil there, I used some dried marigold for the base of the structures in the background, and then for the upper layer to it, I'm using some Rusty Hinge. This one also has some detail parts to the desert, so I'm using that Rusty Hinge for that as well. But you certainly could go and mask off one section and then do a darker shade of the Scattered Straw if you didn't want it to be quite as prominent. This last one here has the cactus as well as the sky, and I'm using some weathered wood for the sky and some peeled paint for the cactus. So for the cactus, I'm doing a heavier amount on the bottom of them, lighter towards the top, because the shadow would be at the bottom and the light would be hitting the top of it. I'm using large blender brushes for all of these. It makes ink blending backgrounds super quick and super easy. For my sky here, I have some weathered wood, and I'm just doing an even amount over the whole thing. You could, if you want, to make a darker skyline or a darker top to the sky or the edge of the cardstock if you want. I opted for this particular one just to keep it even. Now off screen, I'm doing another background. Actually, I'm doing half a background because I don't need the upper layer. I'm going to take my background here and I'm trimming it 1/8 of an inch off of the two sides as well as the bottom, and then I cut that to 2 inches wide. For my full background, I'm cutting 1/8 inch off of all four sides, so the final measurement for this piece is going to be 4 inches by 5 1/4. This way I'm going to see a little bit of the white card base behind each one of those. Now, as I said before, we need 2 A2 card bases for this. One of them is folded traditionally just in half. For the second one, if you already have an A2 card base folded in half, you can score one side at 2 1/8 inches. If you just have a piece of 5 1/2 by 8 1/2 inch cardstock like I have here, you can score it at 4 1/4 inches and 2 1/8 inches. And once it's scored, it creates kind of a Z shape. Now, for the long side of this back, I'm just going to cut off just a hair of it, not even a 1/16 of an inch, just a hair, just to make it a little bit shorter. I'm going to glue this inside of the traditionally folded A2 card base, and I want to make sure that the edge of that cardstock doesn't meet the fold of that card base, so it fits right here. So I glued those two together. Now we're ready to add the stenciled background. So I'm starting with my half stenciled background. This is going to go on the front panel of the card, making sure that there is about 1/8 of an inch all the way around the two sides as well as the bottom. The top of that background should go right on that score line there. The full background here is going to be centered on the back. So you see when we fold our card together, that scene meets and we have a full background. Now we can take our car and we can glue it to the front of the card. Now, because I had my glossy accents on the headlights there, you do want to make sure that if it's not dry, that we're not touching it, or make sure that it's completely dry before you get to this step, because we don't want to mess up the glossy accents. I put the glue towards the bottom part of the car and glued it to the front of that card, and then just put my acrylic block below those headlights so that I wasn't going to mess that up. And then I added the sentiment to the top right corner of the card. And those sentiments were done with my last video. It's from the Cruisin by Sentiments stamp and die set. So I had a couple left over and used them up. So here is the finished result. We have just a really simple card, but it has a unique fold to it. So it stands a little bit different. When you stand it up, that car is a little bit more forward on the seam, but we have a continuous seam because we stenciled that background in full and then in half. Now we have our shaped card base that can just be easily used as a tag if you want it. But this one is also a fun one to have on the mantle because it's shaped. We don't have a background to it. It's just something fun and a little bit different for using that card die. Or like I said, you could use it the same as or in place of that Hot Rod Flames if you want to have it on that background. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate all the time that you spend with me. You'll find everything I've used listed and linked down in the description box below. I hope you have a fantastic day.